Hey, welcome to the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast. This is Dianne, your lactation consultant.
And I'm Abby, the Badass Breastfeeder. And today's episode is brought to you by Ruminant Nursing Wear's Pump and Nurse Collection. All-in-one products that you can both breastfeed as well as pump hands-free in. And we will hear more about Ruminant later. But right now, Dianne has our review of the week, right?
I do. Yes, I do. And our review of the week is from Alenda331. And she says, I've wanted to rewrite a review for a long time, but there's so much amazingness about this podcast. It's hard to choose what to rave about. I wish I would have known about you gals way sooner. Today, I knew I had to say thank you. I hadn't experienced a moment in the last 16 months in which I had felt I was judged for breastfeeding or that it was wrong until today. Visiting the dentist, I was made to believe I shouldn't be breastfeeding at night because I'm going to cause cavities. Luckily, I had listened to episode 57 and knew that was a bunch of baloney. It infuriated me so much, but I didn't know what to say. So here I am listening to the cavities and breastfeeding episode again while writing this, so I am prepared when I return in 6 months. I'm blessed to have stumbled across this podcast. Thank you for empowering me and all the other women out there on their journeys as mothers, and I feel like you are both my best friends. Let's be real. I wish you were. Haha. Oh, I love that you were able to put it right into action and that is like the biggest reason why we did that episode. And it comes up all the time about the cavities.
All the time. There's so much nonsense out there about cavities. And that's just a big one. I get it all the time too. And I've gotten to the point where I don't engage. I just kind of roll my eyes and I'm like, fix their teeth.
Right. I can't even entertain that anymore.
No.
And that is amazing. And I'm so glad that this worked for you. And I'm so glad that you wrote a review to tell us about it too. That's
Yes.
awesome.
Thank you.
Yes. And if you want to be our review of the week, send us a review on iTunes. We love to hear them. We love to know which episode you like. We love to know how it helped you. And then we like to talk about the reviews on the air. So you could be our review of the week. So what are we going to talk about today? It's kind of it's a big topic, right?
I know it is. It is. And it got even bigger to me recently when I posted about it on social media. And we're going to talk about post-weaning depression. And that's something that I think scares a lot of people. Because one of the reactions that we got when I posted this article was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that's what was going on with me. I think this happened to me. And the other one was, oh no, I'm scared to wean now.
Aww.
And it's like, I totally understand. We're not talking about this to scare you. We're talking about it because it might not happen to you. We're talking about it so that so that we can be prepared, right? Because first, and it sucks because it's like, well, I just got through the postpartum time and we have to always be aware of postpartum depression. And now you're telling me there's this post-weaning depression and what is this nonsense? And I get it. It's a lot. It's a lot to know. But the more we know, right?
Right. Knowledge is
power.
power.
The more we can do.
Yep.
Yeah. The more we can do about it. And this all started in my head, and Dianne has her own stories about it too, in her practice. But I posted an article from parents.com. It's called Post-Weaning Depression is a Thing, and it's time we start talking about it. And it just talks a little bit about, it's a very easy read. I can put it on the website. It talks a little bit about the symptoms, which we can go into, and kind of, the fact that a lot of people are really surprised to hear that this is a thing. And, and it's nice to see that there's an actual doctor in this article talking about it and how they, support breastfeeders through this. But so then, like I said, I posted it on social media and it got such a huge reaction that I'm like, okay, this is going to be, we have to talk more about this. And it's by, who's it by? It's by Zara Husseini Hanawalt. I don't know if there's a bit about that person down here. I don't know if there's a little bio or something. It doesn't look like it. But anyway, so, let's talk about this.
Yeah. And, so much is just kind of written off as new mom anxiety,
Yes.
And it could, I think that's why one of the reasons why it's not recognized as a thing, because you start experiencing, or you'll start to experience these feelings, and you just don't realize that that's what it is. And people go, oh yeah, it's just, new mom, you're busy, you're doing that, like all this stuff. And you kind of are left that feeling of like, nobody really gets it,
Right. I mean, we talked about this in the postpartum mood disorders episode of like, there's you've got this new baby and all this stuff is going on, and you go to the doctor and there's this questionnaire, like, are you having any depression? Are you having any anxiety? And you fill it out. There's no follow-up. There's no nothing, you're just like, people are like, oh, be happy. Congratulations on your new baby. Everything's great. Right. And, we just don't talk about these things. We don't recognize them. We're just like, oh, my God, it's a bad feeling. Don't talk about it. Or, I just had my baby. I'm supposed to be happy. I better not tell anybody. We're hiding this stuff. We're sitting on top of it because we don't know how people are going to take it. And then even when we do reach out, sometimes we're just ignored.
Right. And that's frustrating, beyond frustrating.
It's more than frustrating. Yeah. It's so damaging.
It is. Mm-hmm.
It's like ruining people. It's like, and these are normal things that we can help you through, that you can get help with. And a lot of times just knowing that you are going through something that's a real thing is like, that's all some people need to know. They're like, oh, okay. So, I'll get through this. And,
it's validating. It's really validating just to know that, okay, this is what I was feeling. And it's not like, some horrible thing you're experiencing. It's just something
you're not the only one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this post talks about, I mean, I don't need to sit and read it to you. That might be kind of boring. But they're talking about, a lot of people were, telling this doctor, like, wait, that's a thing? Like, you're making this up. This has to be fake, And they're like, no, it's like, it's a real thing. You're going through, there's all kinds of hormonal fluctuations, which we can talk a lot about these hormonal fluctuations because, you have a baby, you get pregnant, there's hormonal fluctuations.
Oh,
you have a baby, there's hormones, breastfeeding hormones, weaning hormones. And I'm sorry, but I weaned, my kids were both self-weaned, big kids. And I haven't breastfed in a long time, and I'm a hormonal wreck. Like, I go to to my midwife, and they're like, we'll help you through it. All this stuff is really normal. It's okay, And it's like you're a hormonal being.
Oh my God,
this stuff is.
It's unbelievable how much your hormones change, and how much they fluctuate. And then on top of it, if you're on birth control, which a lot of times, the minute you hit like 6 weeks to 3 months, they're, trying to get you on birth control, or mamas are trying to get on birth control because they don't want to have baby after baby and want a little space there. And that adds more to the hormonal pot.
Right. Exactly. And, yeah, exactly. And so it says post-weaning depression is a term used to describe depression that can occur after a person stops breastfeeding. It can come as a result of hormonal fluctuations and or the psychological stress of weaning. Symptoms may include increased irritability, teariness, loss of pleasure in a usually pleasurable activity, fatigue, or trouble concentrating.
It's like
the
me
things
every day
that bother you. Yeah, I mean, like the things that you're going through that bother you, that make you feel like something is wrong.
Right. And it really might be that it might sneak up on you. It really might sneak up on you where things are going fine and, you're kind of doing this whole thing. And then all of a sudden, you're just not feeling like yourself. Maybe you didn't even really experience any kind of postpartum issue, or maybe you had like a little baby blues and this is what it's reminding you of, but you're just not realizing that that's what it is. Yeah. It is really, really common. It is really common. What do they like? Do they give any, like, what is the main point of the article? Are they talking about like, we need to bring awareness to this? Or are they talking about like what kinds of things you can do?
No, it's really just about bringing awareness.
Okay.
Yeah. But we can talk about certainly what we can do about this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've I try to talk to moms about this. Usually, if they're weaning earlier than their body thinks they need to be weaning. So let me put that a little bit better. So maybe I have a mom that is going back to work, really struggling to keep up with pumping. Things just aren't working out. It's too stressful. She wants to wean. Okay. She contacts me and says, I need to wean. This just isn't working out. First thing I do is like praise her for contacting me, because a lot of people don't do that. They don't contact their lactation consultant to wean because they think, I don't know what they think. They think they're going to be judged maybe, or that they're going to be scolded, or, well, here you can always try other ways to do it. No, I'm going to help you to do that safely, because if that mother just says, all right, I can't do this anymore, I'm just going to stop breastfeeding and stop pumping and my body will just like dry up, the hormonal changes that will happen will throw you into the possibility of them throwing you into a depression. The postpartum weaning depression is very, very high at that point, because your body is not handling the fluctuation of those hormones well.
Right. And there's actually a couple of great paragraphs here about those hormones that just put it really nicely. And I'm just trying to scroll here.
Yeah. So what we
I have...
What
so
I like those moms, I'm sorry, well, I was just going to say while you were looking, what I like those moms to do is we start weaning down slowly. So we take away some of that pumping time. We take away some of that feeding time so that your body is naturally pulling back, because that is what happens when you naturally wean, like just when your baby weans on their own, just naturally, your body is pulling back as the baby needs it to. So you might not even notice. You might not ever have any kind of postpartum, depression over weaning if your body just naturally weans and, just follows the baby into what they're naturally doing. But if you shut it down earlier than what your body is naturally doing, that's when we need to alter the routine.
And we're not telling you not to do that, because that's obviously your choice.
Right.
We're just telling you that we want to support you through that, or want you to have somebody who is supporting you through that if you should run into some of those symptoms. Mm-hmm. And so we have the hormonal shifts. So the oxytocin rises during breastfeeding and decreases with weaning. This being the feel-good hormone, as we call it. Means a person may miss this oxytocin feeling and experience more intense senses of loss and sadness. And that's, as you might notice, Exley is here.
Hi, Exley.
We're going to push through. Other hormones play a role too. Prolactin, which is typically elevated during breastfeeding, is associated with feelings of calm. An abrupt decrease in this hormone when abrupt weaning occurs can cause negative feelings. In the meantime, estrogen generally remains lower during breastfeeding and returns to pre-pregnancy levels after weaning. For some people, this happens at slower rates. Shifting estrogen levels causes depressed or irritable mood for some people. And so, we have all of these different kinds of hormones, too, doing all kinds of different kinds of things in our bodies. Mm-hmm. And all affecting our emotions. Generally.
All affecting emotions, your mood. And the other important thing to remember is that everybody reacts hormonally differently.
Exactly.
Some are more hormonal than others. It really just, just because one person doesn't have a problem with it doesn't mean another person is not. Everybody reacts differently. Everybody's hormones affect them differently.
Right. And I think that's so important too, because, we talk about how, your best chance of kind of avoiding this is just, self-weaning, but some people don't want to do that, and that's totally fine. And on top of it, some people may do that and they may experience really dramatic shifts in their hormones. Mm-hmm. They may still go through this. And the article also talks about how it might not kick in right away. It might take a while. You might wean and there's some time might go by and you start having these symptoms. And then you think, well, it can't possibly be related to breastfeeding because I stopped that a while back. But it still could be related to that.
And, as you mentioned earlier, too, when you first, start talking about this article, it could be the psychological piece of it. So maybe if you did self-wean, maybe it's not the hormonal impact. Maybe it's you not realizing how much you were going to miss that piece of connection with your baby. that is, I have people all the time, and I'm sure you hear it all the time too, that say, I did not realize how emotional this is. I didn't realize how connected, how much I was going to love breastfeeding, how I just love it. It's such a part of my life. And then you wean, and even if you're ready, or it's just, it's hard. It really is hard.
I think we can talk about this in relation to, I keep comparing it to postpartum depression, but I want to, because I feel like that gets a lot more, not enough at all, but that's a little bit more known, right? We kind of hear that more.
Right.
But this is something that we just don't hear about that absolutely exists. And so we can talk about, a part of postpartum depression being like that transition. You get used to being pregnant, you have your baby inside of your body for so long, and then your baby comes out and you're supposed to be happy, but it's this big transition. It's kind of like, oh, it's not in me anymore. He's out there now with the world. And that can be really a really emotional transition for people. And there's also the transition then of weaning, and of that changing relationship can really be emotional for people. So, we talk about hormones, definitely, but there's other things involved too. Mm-hmm. You might just mourn the loss of that breastfeeding relationship. And that doesn't make that's totally normal.
Yeah, it really is.
It doesn't mean that you're, again, it doesn't mean something's wrong, or that you did something wrong, or, it's a big breastfeeding. Likely, if you have chosen breastfeeding and you've done it, it's likely become a pretty big part of you and your relationship. I mean, that's, it's a big part of your relationship with your new baby.
It is.
And when it ends, that's just a big deal. It's a really big deal.
It is. It's hard. And I think we're afraid to have people minimize that, or to even say, I'm going to miss breastfeeding, which I wish people would talk about that part of it. I wish they would say, oh, I really miss it. It was wonderful. I really miss it. Because nobody really says that. We never talk about the weaning, ever. We never talk about it. People are just all of a sudden, they're just not breastfeeding anymore. Nobody ever talks about the weaning, how it feels, what they need to do, what made their decision. It just doesn't happen.
I know. It's true. We don't
talk
about it. We don't talk about it like it's some secret or something.
Right.
We don't know. Like breastfeeding doesn't go on. We're constantly trying to explain to other people that breastfeeding doesn't go on forever. Oh, you're going to breastfeed them until they're an adult? Hello, no, it doesn't go on that long. So we keep, it's but then it comes to talking about the end of our own breastfeeding relationship. So we don't talk about it. That's like a secret. I'm not a breastfeeder anymore. I can't talk about it anymore. That's so
weird. It's so weird.
It is weird. And I think that people that do go through, I used to think if I wean, I'm not a lactation consultant, I'm not anything like that. So if I wean, am I still going to have a voice in this? And I weaned and I was like, wait, I have even more of a voice now. I went through the whole thing. Mm-hmm. I went through that. Now I have that experience too, which my experience isn't the end all be all experience, but the weaning part is a part of breastfeeding.
Yeah.
There's a beginning and a middle and an end. No matter how long you do it, it's gonna end.
It is.
And now everybody cries.
But we will talk more about that piece after words from our sponsor.
Yes. Today's episode is brought to you by Rumina Nursing Wear's Pump and Nurse Collection. Are you looking for a bra or tank top you can do both breastfeeding and hands-free pumping in it? Don't want to completely disrobe to put on a different pumping top? Rumina Nursing Wear's Pump and Nurse Collection has helped thousands and thousands of breastfeeders reach their breastfeeding goals by offering all-in-one products that breastfeeders can easily nurse and pump hands-free in. With their simple hands-free pumping design, breastfeeders don't have to worry about disrobing completely or putting on additional pumping straps or tops. All of Rumina's products are comfortable to wear all day and supportive for busy, multitasking breastfeeders like you. Badass Breastfeeding listeners can receive an exclusive 20% off discount at Rumina's Pump and Nurse Collection by visiting Rumina's website, pumpandnurse.com, and using code BB19. And this special offer, their website, can be found on our website, badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com, along with all of our breastfeeding resources, all of our other episodes, and your information about how to schedule your lactation consultation with Dianne.
So if I had to pick like one of the most important takeaways from this, I don't even know. Like, I don't even know what I would pick, because now I kind of feel like, oh my God, like I never even said that out loud, that like we never talk about the weaning part. You know, like I tell people all the time that I kind of complain about it or whatever, that, oh my gosh, people never call me to wean, and I really want that to be able to help them through that, but we don't talk about it.
And I think that's such a really interesting point, because we call lactation consultants and we call on people. I will say people do call on me about weaning, and I'm happy about that. But I do probably think people don't call you, because there's something about lactation consultants. It's like, oh, well, I'm breastfeeding, I'm having problems. I have to be having a breastfeeding related problem, like, you know, like early on, like latching or getting the milk out or something like that, to call a lactation consultant. And we think there's this weird thing that we don't want to talk about weaning. And it's like, well, I can't call a lactation consultant about stopping breastfeeding. You know, we call them about starting breastfeeding and getting breastfeeding going, but we don't call them about stopping breastfeeding. But you totally should.
You totally should. You totally
That's
should.
Part of it. That's exactly part of it. And they actually know what to do. They can help you. They're not going to that. And you mentioned this before. None of us are going to be like, you shouldn't do this. You want to wean? No. Sorry, you're not allowed.
I'm not going to help you.
We're the breastfeeding police. Yeah, I'm not going to help you. We're the breastfeeding police. We're telling you, no, you're not allowed to. That's insane. No one is going to tell you. No one is going to tell you that at all. I've never, ever said that to anybody. I take them directly to the resources that I have and my experiences and what I think will be helpful about weaning.
Right. Right. You know, and I have had a couple of moms ask me about weaning because of a medication that they needed to take long term or something like that. And, you know, even if I'd said to them, I've checked it out, it is safe for you, and they still said, you know, I'm just not sure if I'm really comfortable with that. Okay. You know, that it is your choice. It is your baby. It is your family. It is your choice. But I want you to do it safely. I want it to be safe so that you don't feel like this.
Right. I think that's a good point. Yeah. If you say like, well, I have to wean because I have to take this medication, I might say like, well, actually, you know, that's not true, and like help you work through that. But yeah, if you're just like, I need to wean, I really want to, you know, I'm done. I really want to, like, that's your choice. That's the whole point of this, of having all the information, is that you get to do what you want to do, which is right for you and is right for your body and right for your family. And you know, people get into this, and we're talking about post-weaning depression. So people get into this, and then they're having all these feelings and all of these like symptoms, and it can be really scary. And it's okay. It is totally okay to reach out for help, to say, I'm not feeling good. And, you know, everybody has to make this decision for themselves. Because if you feel like you're going through this and you're having some symptoms and you're like, okay, just knowing that makes me feel better. And you know, I know I'll be able to ride this out. That's great. If you're like, if this is really interrupting your daily functioning, then reach out for help. There is absolutely no shame in reaching out for help through the weaning process.
Right. And, you know, I had a mom that contacted me once. This is several years ago. Well, probably 3 or 4, I think. But she was one of my moms that I worked with a lot at the pediatrician's office. And she had a set of twins. And her journey was very different from others. You know, she was in a same-sex relationship. They had these beautiful girls. There was always like some hormonal stuff going on there too, obviously, you know, in vitro. And she never like fully breastfed them because of milk supply issues and, you know, legitimate reasons, but breastfed as much as she possibly could, which was still just amazing, you know, and she had these 2 babies and she was doing as much as she could with them, but was not fully breastfeeding them. And I remember when she did wean them, she was like, and at this point, she wasn't even really like, you know, making that much anymore. She had gone back to work. She was only nursing them very, very infrequently and not for very long. And she ended up, you know, weaning, and then she contacted me later and she goes, could I have felt like some depression there? She goes, I really just have not felt quite right. And that's the only thing that I know that has changed. And I was like, yes, absolutely. So I think even if people think like, oh, I wasn't even breastfeeding fully, or like, it doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't matter what your relationship with your baby, what your breastfeeding relationship was like. You could still feel like this and experience it.
Right. And I'd love to share like some of the comments
from
the, from Instagram when I shared it, because there were so many.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So one person said, Mary says, oh my God. I just weaned after 4 years. I think you just diagnosed me. I had no idea this was a thing. I've been cycling through medications, trying to find something that works for me. It just hit me out of the blue, is what it seemed. Thank you.
It's amazing.
So this person thought that she was having a huge mental breakdown, which, is also okay to it's okay. Whatever is happening, we can help you. But, people might think something else is totally going on, or, oh my gosh, I'm having when you start having these feelings, it's so scary.
Oh my gosh, it is.
And so, so that made her really feel like, she had an idea of kind of what was going on. So this person says, post-weaning depression hit me hard for my first kid. As I approach weaning for kid number 2, I'm a bit panicky because I'm not sure if there is a way to prevent post-weaning depression from happening. And so, then we have a lot of people who are still breastfeeding, haven't gotten to the point of weaning yet, and are nervous about going through that and kind of wondering what they can do now to prevent it. And really, just preventing a hormonal and emotional reaction to something ending that is that big is, you're probably not going to be able to prevent all of it.
Oh. But the awareness is key.
Absolutely.
Like if knowing that it's your hormones changing, that is really, I think that's preventive. I really do. I think that is a huge piece of being preventive about it, because when going forward, okay, these are the things to kind of watch for. Like that's really important. And that will be helpful.
And so, yes. And Grace says, going through this right now, my almost 3-year-old went through nursing for several nights without nursing for several nights about 2 weeks ago. I decided since before bed was the only time we were doing it to go ahead and wean, sort of regretting it, but I also have dried up. I thought we were ready, but it has been rough for both of us. And so you might even get into the middle of weaning and think you're ready, and maybe you are ready, and it could be, could be a rough time. It might not be, but you could go through, halfway through it and think, oh no, I made a mistake, or we're not ready for this, or any of those kind of doubtful feelings.
But this is why, when you mentioned postpartum depression or postpartum mood disorders a little bit earlier in the episode, and not breastfeeding is linked to postpartum depression. That is something that they have researched and found, that those two things, there is a link there. And that makes total sense, right? Like
yes,
if you choose not to breastfeed at all, which again, that is your choice. But they have noticed that women that choose not to breastfeed at all do have a higher likelihood of postpartum depression.
Right. And that is all hormonal. Right.
And that is exactly what we're talking about now, the weaning, not breastfeeding anymore.
Yeah, right. And so I like this comment. I'm not ready for this, but when the time comes, I'm going to get a breast milk necklace made to help.
Oh, that's a great
idea. And I love
idea.
that. It's such a great idea to have this keepsake, whether it's a breast milk jewelry or a framed photograph, or a photo session, or anything, that would kind of, just be like a keepsake that you can have forever to kind of, remember this time. I think that's something that could be really helpful too.
That's a great idea. I love that she suggested that. I love it.
I know. I love that idea. And should we hear a couple more?
Yeah.
I like these. Okay. OMG, thank you for this. I went through this with my older daughter a few years back. I suffered with severe anxiety and OCD after I weaned her. It creeped up on me shortly after I stopped nursing her. Post-weaning depression was not a thing then, and I felt so alone. I found a medication that helped, but now that my youngest is starting to nurse less, I can feel it creeping back on. Thank you for getting the word out about this. I'm going to talk to my doctor about it now without feeling like a crazy person.
Definitely.
So fantastic.
Yes.
To like, that's what you also can do is you can say, you know, I just want to have a connection with a lactation consultant or my doctor or a counselor. There's no shame in having a therapist or a counselor. Mm-hmm. Like, just have one. Just at any point,
yeah.
You know, like it's so, you know, and you can do that before you go through the weaning process. If you're worried about that, you can have that person on hand.
They could probably really help you with some great strategies going forward, you know,
and just ask and be there to kind of listen and support you through the whole process.
And I love, like, I hope you pass some education along. Like if you talk to your doctor and they're really not aware or haven't seen it or just, I hope you're able to educate them. I really do. Now this article that you have, Abby, is it like, are there any research things on there or anything like that?
There's links in the article to other things. I'll put it on the web. I'll send it to you and I'll put it on the website.
Yeah, I was going to say, put it on the website. That way if people want to like copy it and, you know, or download it or whatever and share it with other people or even bring it to your doctor's appointment and share it with them.
And honestly, this is not the only thing that's ever been written on post-weaning depression.
Right.
You know, this is the thing that's kind of on parents.com. It got a lot of like play. So that's fantastic. But I'm sure that you can find other things as well about this thing. And Megan says, this actually just made me feel validated. And now I understand about what I was going through a few months ago. And so, you know, she went through it and she got through it. Mm-hmm. And she looks back and she goes, oh, wow, that must have been what I was going through.
Yep.
So there is it doesn't mean you're going to fall down the rabbit hole forever.
No. That's amazing. I mean, it's amazing to see when you put up an article like that. It's amazing to have people go, oh my gosh, I'm so validated by this. And I'm so glad to know that something.
Yes. And you can, and this was on, yes. And this was on my Facebook and Instagram. If you guys want to scroll through the comments and just kind of commiserate with people. Again, it's just the picture of the article that I put on Post-Weaning Depression is a thing. And it's time we start talking about it. And it's a picture of it's like a cartoon picture of a person crying, actually.
So I think for me, the takeaways are, you know, that this is a thing. There's not much awareness here. We want to try to bring more awareness to this. Just because you are a breastfeeding mom is not a guarantee you're going to experience this. We just want people to know that it is something that's out there and something that can happen.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think it's not talked about enough. So if you need to wean, get some help with that. If you're ready to wean, if you're not sure if you're ready to wean, anything around weaning, definitely get some help. Talk about it with people. It's important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening.
Bye.
Bye.